Hello YouTube and welcome to the 7th tutorial in the PHP tutorial series, and this is going to be quite a confusing concept to discuss, but hopefully we can get over it, we can get around it, and this will work for all the newbies. But you know, in my tutorial where I showed you how to output text, I used double quotes, and I did say that we can use single quotes with concatenation, and that's pretty much what I'm going to be discussing in this video. So first of all, what is the difference between double and single quotes? Well, let's just write a quick little script that will output text to the browser. The first one will be echo with double quotes, hello world, and the second one will echo hello world with single quotes, and we'll save that as strings.php. Okay, so if we go to strings.php, you'll notice that they are exactly the same, and there's no break there, so I'll just put a HTML line break right there. And you'll see they're exactly the same thing, but the difference between these is, I'll just show you that right now through a variable. I'll declare a variable called name. I'll just word it's going to be called, and we'll assign that with the value of world and end that. And you'll know from the variables tutorial, to include a variable in a string, output it, you'll just type the word word. But if we do that down here, we'll get a different result. And if I save this and show you that, you'll notice that the first one, and I apologise, I just should put a line break in there to make it easier to show. You'll notice that the first line outputs the variable and the second one doesn't. And I'm just going to explain the difference between a double quote and a single quote. Now, when you have a string with a double quote, that is telling PHP to parse the whole string and find a variable. So if you have a variable, it's going to say, okay, we're starting with double quotes, now please PHP look through here and take the variable and convert it to the actual value, which is world. But when you have single quotes, you're just skipping that process and outputting the entire string as a string. So the difference is, when you want to have a variable with a single quote, you need to concatenate it, and I'm not sure what I should... I'll just explain first of all why it does this. When you have double quotes, PHP will parse it for the variable, and that means that it takes longer to execute this script, and as we're only outputting 2 words, it's quite minimal, it's only 1 variable, so it doesn't take long. But if you had thousands and thousands of words, there would be quite a small performance difference that you'd notice when outputting the variables. So how can you get around this? Well, if you want to output single quotes and you want to use a variable, you can concatenate it. So let's just go back here. I'm just going to put this in single quotes. World, okay. Okay, so if you want to echo out that, we want to say hello world, but you want to use single quotes, you can do it like this. Echo, and as you'll start off with hello, then put a space, and now we're going to end the string. And what we can do is actually join a variable on with a string by concatenation. And you do that using a full stop, so just have a full stop. And then after the full stop, you will have the variable name, which is world. And then we'll have another full stop, and then, we can actually have more text after this, so we can just have a break, and then end it and have a semicolon. We save that. You'll see that we've used a single quote and we've actually concatenated a variable onto it. So if we wanted to do this with double quotes, we would just do echo hello world. And looking at that, it looks a lot easier to do double quotes, doesn't it? And whoops, we save that, reload it, same thing. But the difference is with performance, but also what I'm going to discuss now is how to echo out HTML. So let's just go back and let's just use double quotes, and we're going to change this. We're going to declare a variable called Google, okay? And actually we won't use a variable right now, we'll just echo out something to prove a point. So if we echo out in double quotes, we're going to echo out a link. Now if you don't know how to use a link in HTML, it goes like this. You do open brackets a href equals, and in double quotations you will put google.com. And then to end the link, you will end it. And then after this will be the anchor text, which is what is shown as the text for the link. And then we'll end it with that. So you guys should know basically how to output a link if you're learning PHP. If you don't, you can Google it. But that will just output the link Google, or will it? So we save this, and you'll see we have a parse error. And that's because if we look at this, as a normal person, we think, okay, we open it here, we put the link, and we end it. Well, let's look at this from a PHP point of view. we open up the double quotes and then we type ahref equals, but then here when we're adding the link, we're actually closing the string. So what we can do here is, there's two options that we have, and the easiest option is to just use a single quote. So let's close this, and we're going to do echo single quotes, and we'll just put href equals google.com, and then we can just type Google and close it, and we'll just add our semicolon right there. Oops, what am I doing? And now you can see that our link actually works. So what I do is, when I'm using HTML, I will use a single quote, and that's because it's much easier to write the HTML because you don't have to escape as many characters, and I'll explain that in one moment. But if I'm, I'm actually quite lazy, so if I'm just doing, outputting some text with a variable, I will just use double quotes. So I'm just going to echo, if I'm just, for example, I'm just going to say, my name is name, and let's just imagine that this name variable has been declared with the value of Chris. I'll just do that. So, let's say if you want to use a variable in HTML, let's just put link as the variable. I'm going to assign that to the value of Google. And then inside here where it says Google, we can just concatenate the variable in here. We'll end it, full stop, and then we'll just put the variable link, another full stop, and we'll start up the string again. Okay, so let's go back to single quotes, and let's say we have a variable, and let's say we actually want to echo out a string, but it has an apostrophe in. So, hello, it's a nice day to code PHP. And all we're saying here is we open it and we say, hello, it's a nice day to code PHP, and we'll close it, and then we'll have a semicolon, and we'll save that, and you'll notice there's a parse error. And it goes back to the same problem as before. PHP thinks that we've ended the code here with the apostrophe, when in actual fact we want it to carry on. So all we need to do here is do a backslash, and this is known as an escape. And what this does is this tells PHP, okay, the value after this backslash is, don't regard this as a PHP method, just regard this as a normal string. So if we save this, reload it, we can see that it has worked, and there's no parse error. And also, if you want to do a backslash, a literal backslash, you just do like, let's just type out, we can use double backslash single quotes, but if we reload that, actually that works. I'm not sure. I actually thought that you had to do a double backslash to actually output a backslash, but in PHP 5 it must have updated, or I must just be remembering wrong. So actually, I would just use double backslashes in case, if depending on, it might be an older version of PHP installed on a web server. So, that works as well. So that was just this tutorial, and let's just go over what we've learned in this tutorial. For starters, double quotes allow variables to be used inside of the string without concatenating them. So you can just write a string, echo out a string, and then use a variable with that. But it is slower to parse a variable with double string, because you're telling PHP there's a variable in there, so it has to pass through and get out all the variables. And with a single quote, it's actually faster to execute on a server, but you need to concatenate the variables. So let's just say it's faster to type out with double quotes, but it's faster for the server to execute it with single quotes. And to write HTML, it's more convenient to use single quotes, because double quotes are used quite often in HTML, so it will be difficult and quite messy to escape all of the HTML double quotes. And yeah, that's what we've learned in this tutorial. So it's actually quite pointless. Well, not pointless, that's not what I was looking for. It's actually not relevant right now to you, because you're not going to be writing out massive strings, so it doesn't really matter about parsing out variables and double quotations. So what I do is, when I'm writing out, echoing out some strings, and it has a variable in it, but I'm not using HTML, I'll just use double quotes. But if I'm using HTML, I'll use single quotes, and I'll concatenate the variables. So yeah, that's pretty much the summary of this tutorial. So I hope you guys learned a lot from this. If you didn't, then watch over it again, or it doesn't actually matter that much. But please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions on this, just leave a comment. And yeah, enjoy the next tutorial.